magic, mystery, death and history. Turn the volume up so you don't miss a thing, and let's get to it.
Hey guys, we're your hosts. I'm Jess.
And I'm Fenella.
And this is Cozy Crime Club. Each episode we explore real cases from the eerie to the outrageous with curiosity, empathy, and just the right amount of dark humour. So pour yourself a big mug of something warm, tea, coffee, or maybe something a little stronger. Grab a blanket and settle in. Welcome to the club. Welcome back, guys. And tonight, Fenella, you're bringing us a wonderful story, I'm sure. What spooky case have you got for us today?
Once again, I have a historic case for us. And I'm always prefacing at the club, but I do need to preface this one because it is a historic case. It takes place in a small town, and there are a lot of similar names throughout it, so it could get confusing, but hopefully you'll all stay with me and we'll all know who everyone is by the end. The year is 1612. We're in Lancashire, England, a northern county that English officials like to describe as unruly and difficult to govern. In the 16th century, the Reformation, which split the church, had changed the fabric of faith across the West. It challenged the authority of the Catholic Church and saw the rise of Protestantism. England saw itself altered in the wake of this. In Lancashire, straddling the tension between old and new, sat Pendle Hill, and on its slopes, in the villages below, two poor families lived by selling healing charms, begging, making small trades, and, depending on who's speaking, witchcraft. And by summer's end, 10 people would hang. While most English witchcraft cases survive as rumour and fragment, Pendle is different. The clerk of the court, Thomas Potts, published an official account in 1613 called The Wonderfull Discoverie of Witches in the Countie of Lancaster. Because of that, we can actually trace the arc of events from the first accusation to the final knot at the gallows. Imagine England between centuries. Elizabeth I had died. Her successor, James VI of Scotland, or James I of England, had crossed the border with a fixed interest in witchcraft. Years earlier, he had watched Scottish trials, seen storms blamed on sorcery, and written Demonology, a book urging the prosecution of witches and those who support them. Under his rule, witchcraft remained a felony when harm could be proved, and the law permitted harsh interpretation. Hearsay and the words of children could carry weight that would be impossible in other crimes. Lancashire was, in London's view, a problem county. Catholic practice had continued in secret. Households were loyal to the old rites, and people treated charms, herbal cures, and wise women as everyday tools. In that world, the line between cunning and witch could be a matter of who was speaking, who was paying, and who was angry. In early 1612, each justice of the peace in Lancashire was ordered to list those who were refusing the English church. It was a surveillance measure, dressed as pastoral care, and into that climate walked a peddler named John Law and a young woman named Alison Device. In March 1612, Alison Device, poor and young, met John Law on the road to Trawden Forest. She asked him for pins. 17th century pins were handmade and dear. They were useful in sewing, and to many potent in certain charms, for warts, divination, and love. But John Law refused. There is some dispute over whether she actually offered to pay for these pins, but regardless he declined and made to walk on. When suddenly Alison spoke. A curse had left her lips, and a few moments later John collapsed. His body would not respond correctly to his commands, and somehow he managed to stagger to an inn, where luckily he did recover. But his family were suspicious. very suspicious of witchcraft. Reports were made, and when the case reached Justice Roger Noel, Alison confessed. She said she did call on the devil to lame John Law. And then she went on to name others. She implicated her grandmother, Elizabeth Southerns, nicknamed Old Demdike, and had long been thought a witch. Her nickname Old Demdike, there's a theory that it possibly translates to demon woman.
Mm-hmm.
And that was her nickname. And I found that spooky and interesting and kind of cool.
I hadn't heard that, so that's totally news to me.
Yes, I was like, what does that mean? Why is she called this? So I was doing all my Googling, and I came across this, potentially it means demon woman, and I was like, okay, girl,
I'd love to know that. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
So she's just thrown her nan under the bus.
Oh, yeah, right under the bus.
I'm even surprised she goes, yeah, I did call upon the devil. Like, in this tumultuous time, why would you be admitting that? That is suicide. That is, I don't know. I'm just like, she's like, yeah, I called upon the devil. But my grandma, she could have just said, no, I never did it. I didn't hex the guy. He just
So that's
fell.
something that I found fascinating throughout this whole case, because isn't this interesting that everyone was like, oh my God, yes, I'm a witch. But then at the same time, well, that was the culture. Maybe they were proud of these things. Maybe she literally did curse him, like, die or something, give me those pins or die. He dropped. She'd be like,
can I move things with my mind? But
yeah, exactly.
Even if she was a witch or a practicing witch, just keep it secret. Like, you know what they do to them. Although, in saying that, was it, like, so you said this is 1612?
I don't know if they did know what they did to them.
Yeah, it might
actually
be pretty
I think they might
new.
not have known. Yeah, and also I think if you believe that you're a witch, maybe you think you can witch your way out of things as well. She implicated her nan. Alison then pointed to members of a rival family, the Chaddocks. Anne Whittle, known as Mother Chaddocks, and her daughter Anne. There was an old bitterness there. The Demdikes and the Chaddocks had been in competition for local trade in remedies and protections, with accusations of theft and threats circulating for years. Under pressure, rivalries hardened into statements, and statements hardened into evidence. Memories of sudden and unexplained deaths in the community intertwined with the accusations, and Justice Noel soon ordered arrests. Alison, her mother Elizabeth, and her brother James were all examined. Old Demdike, her grandmother, and Mother Chaddocks were brought in, both blind and in their 80s. Demdike confessed that she had sold her soul to the devil decades before. Chaddocks admitted to a bargain with a spirit or a devil. Some said she sold her soul for vengeance and riches. Meanwhile, Anne was accused of moulding clay figures. In the end, Alison, Old Demdike, Mother Chaddocks, and her daughter Anne were all committed to Lancaster Castle for trial. This might have ended as a narrow case. 4 women held while a magistrate tallied his recusant lists. The recusants being the people that refused to join the new church, the Church of England. That might have been the case had there not been a gathering at Malkin Tower on Good Friday, April 10th, 1612. Malkin Tower was the Demdike home, where Alison and her grandmother and their family lived. It was poor, isolated, already half legend in neighbours' mouths. James Device, Alison's brother, stole a sheep to feed a group of people who had assembled there that day. The meeting was variously described as a meal, a council, a plea for relief, a plot to free the prisoners. And on that last one, a plot to free the prisoners, there was actually a theory that people were gathering to discuss a gunpowder plot to blow up the castle and set the prisoners free. So the witches, get them out. This didn't go ahead. There were just rumors that this is what the gathering could have been for. And in a climate that anticipated conspiracy, that ambiguity became guilt. News of this gathering reached Justice Noel, who then called an inquiry. 8 more people were committed for trial. Elizabeth, James, Alice, Catherine, John and his mother Jane, Alice Gray, and Jeanette Preston from Yorkshire. So we're hearing some new names now, and these were the people that it is implied gathered that day. And just a side note on Jeanette Preston. Her trial actually would be held separately over in York because of the county line. And so, with all of these arrests, Lancaster Castle's cells filled. It seemed that the meaning of the meeting at Malkin Tower was not stabilised by evidence so much as by fear. That if witches gathered, the law must act. As the months rolled by, the calendar turned to summer, and the month of August saw the assizes reach Lancaster, periodic criminal courts. Back in the day, judicial officials would travel the country periodically through the year to provide court services. So, rolling into town were judges Sir James Altham and Sir Edward Bromley. Now, Justice Noel appeared as a prosecutor. His hands were full of depositions and confessions. Meanwhile, the Lancashire prisoners had spent months in the castle's chill, and old Demdike, Alison's grandmother, would not live to even see the courtroom. She died in the dungeon, too frail to go on.
Oh, Demdike.
I know.
Oh my god. And didn't you say she was just 80 and blind?
Yeah.
Oh, this is devastating. That would not be her favourite granddaughter. She'd be like, you ain't getting a Christmas present from me.
No. Yeah, basically that was the end for her, which is so sad.
Yeah, what a sad way to go. Makes sense that they're just trying to arrest people for trial. But just for Alison to kind of just throw her own family under the bus, that I'm still stuck on that. I'm like, that's so interesting.
I was stuck on it the whole time. I just really think it sort of comes down to the time that it was, you know, where her grandmother was already known to be a witch around town for decades. So I don't know if it's something that you can hide as such.
Well, obviously it was probably the start of the whole witch trials era where people just really did get wrapped up in it. It was pretty much hysteria at the time, right?
Yeah. It's not really something that we can probably relate to these days, but that's just, you know, credit to the centuries that have passed.
It was so religious and spiritual back then. Like, that was their whole world. So if something was coming along to challenge that, I guess that would feel very threatening.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And if people did believe and consider themselves witches, that would kind of be their religion in a sense. That would be their like belief system. It's kind of very personal points of view, I think, here, although it does sound like potentially the whole church thing was more to control the behavior in the town where they wanted to spread that particular church. But then all of this unfolded. And so now here we are. So, yeah, it's kind of a complex start to things.
It is. And it's so important to tell these stories, though, which is why I love history so much, because you really learn from it. Maybe as a society we're not as spiritual as they were back then, but you have I keep forgetting the prosecutor's name. What's his name? Noel.
Noel.
You know, Noel, and just I guess the people in power are trying to control the population, and it's what you can see in today as well in many areas. So in so many ways. So it's good to look at because you can still extrapolate it into today.
All right. So where we've got to so far, old Demdike unfortunately hasn't made it. Before we get there, a separate trial occurred elsewhere. So now we circle back to Jeanette Preston in York. In late July, her trial was held. She was accused of murdering a local landowner named Thomas Lister by witchcraft. Evidence included the old belief that a corpse would bleed in the presence of its murderer. And it was reported that Thomas's body bled when Preston touched it or came in the vicinity. She was then found guilty and hanged shortly after. So that was one person, and I guess case closed. They found it really cut and dry. Moving into August now, so we're back at Lancaster. It's mid-August, and the rest of everyone who had been gathered were standing trial together. This is where things get a little bit more complicated. King James, we mentioned him right at the start. His attitude to evidence hovered over the courtroom. While he had, in some cases, shown personal skepticism towards sloppy proof, preferring hard evidence, his guidance was broadly loosened when it came to witchcraft. And so the judges would allow the testimony of almost anyone, including a small child. The child was 9-year-old Jeanette Device. When Jeanette was brought in, her mother, Elizabeth Device, was in the courtroom. So just to tie this little web together a little bit better for everybody, Alison, the first person who we spoke about, she cursed John Law, and Alison had a sister, Jeanette, and a brother, James. Her little sister is the one that's being brought in here to testify. So she's very exposed to all of these ideas, you would think. She's kind of ripe to testify in this case. And when she was brought in, her mother, Elizabeth, as mentioned, was in the courtroom. But the moment the girl was asked to testify against her, Elizabeth cried out, distressed, and was removed from the room. So now Jeanette was by herself. She was going to testify. Jeanette named those present at Malkin Tower, and more devastatingly, she described familiars and conversations between her mother and a spirit called Ball, who appeared in a physical form as a brown dog. If anyone isn't familiar with familiars, essentially it is just a spirit that assists a witch. Jeanette is laying it on thick here. She's giving all the deets, and it's not looking good.
A leaf out of her sister's book to be like,
she is.
That's going to start throwing my family under the bus here.
I'm starting to see why Alison did maybe say, oh yeah, duh, that was me, because this seems just commonly known and spoken about things. Jeanette does not, granted, she's just 9 years old and she doesn't have someone supporting her. She doesn't have her mother there. Her mother's literally accused. She's testifying against her, which is shocking. I don't know that it sounds like she ever would have considered that this all needed to be hush-hush necessarily. She probably is thinking that now. It's all looking very scary, but she's just saying what she sees, perhaps. So that's what it sounds like.
It's easy to look back on hindsight and to say, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. But if it is all she knew, you said that the family had the rivalry with the Chaddoxes. So, and they were both practicing healing and whatever it might have been. So could have just been all she knew and she might not have known. I wonder if she really knew the gravity of what the outcome would be if you were found to be.
Yeah. She is just 9 years old. I wouldn't have the presence of mind at 9 years old to necessarily suddenly try hide things that were actually considered public knowledge in the village, So
I feel like I have heard this story before. I've forgotten the ending of this case, but I remember in dramatizations of this that the 9-year-old Jeanette, she's very kind of I feel portrayed as kind of conniving. And I don't know, now that we're discussing it, was she just kind of unaware as to what her accusations would do for her family?
Maybe.
Yeah. And it's funny, you just have to be mindful when you, being mindful when you consume anything, whether it's us, whether it's something on the, Discovery Channel, just to know that I guess that everything has a perspective, I guess, because I've definitely heard this one and she's made to really look nasty. I don't know, she's doing it on purpose.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I have that memory as well from when I first heard this story, and it was kind of as if it was almost frivolous or something to her, she had power in saying that people were witches. I didn't get that energy from her. Also, just taking into context as well that she is a child, and even if she was conniving, she's a child. She hasn't had time to learn that's not the way to be.
So true. Yeah.
Jeanette is in court and she's testifying. She spoke against her mother, her brother James, her sister Alison, and the court believed her. In many cases, a child's account would be constrained by the law, but in witchcraft, it became decisive. Here we're going to go into a little bit of detail around the circumstances around these accused. So we have Anne Whittle, Mother Chattox. She was charged with the murder of a man named Robert. She pled not guilty, but her earlier confession was read out. And a witness had testified that she had soured the beer and was commonly thought a witch. Mother Chattox broke, asking God's forgiveness and begging for mercy for her daughter. Elizabeth Device, Jeanette's mother, was charged with multiple murders and with the death of Henry Mitten alongside Demdike and Alice Nutter. Elizabeth's facial asymmetry, which the court clerk Potts called odious. God, odious. That's not a good word.
It doesn't sound like a good word.
No. Extremely unpleasant, repulsive.
That is so rude.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, he's odious.
He is odious. He recorded that she had a left eye set lower than the right eye.
Oh, God forbid.
And I know. I know. But this information, this was offered as evidence of her character.
Thank God we've come past that.
I know. I was like, oh my goodness, you could put anyone on trial for anything in that case. Like, that is crazy. So there was this extra slight against her, I suppose. I think we disagree with that. But regardless, Jeanette's testimony against her mother was again repeated, and her brother James corroborated parts of it, saying that he also saw his mother shape a clay image of a victim at one point. Now, James himself was facing charges of killing Anne Townley and a man called John Duckworth. His confession to Justice Noel was read into the record. Jeanette said that she saw him conjure a black dog to help him murder, and so James was found guilty.
There is a lot of deaths happening, which I feel at the time, looking from a 21st century lens, would be so normal for sanitation reasons, for many, many reasons. So I feel like a lot of them could be explained, but back then they might not have been able to explain it. And it's just easier to find maybe a supernatural reason for it. But a lot of deaths, a lot of accusations.
These deaths didn't happen then. These are deaths that happened at some point, and now people are putting the pieces together in hindsight, because this all started where all these people got arrested following Alison, but they were arrested because they'd technically gathered on Good Friday. It's very interesting to me, bits of memories and people in a bit of a frenzy or hysteria, kind of things get elevated and exaggerated, and you paint pictures that maybe aren't there. But again, maybe this is exactly what happened. Maybe it is.
I find it so fascinating, even just to try to look through the lens of a different time and maybe a different culture, depending on where you're listening to this from. But just being able to look through time and see how they lived, how they operated, what they believed in. So fascinating.
It is. It's really interesting. None of this was under the rug. It was all just, this is the way there was. Now, old lady or Mother Chattox, her daughter Anne, was actually tried twice. In her first appearance, she was tried for the murder of a man named Robert. The evidence was judged insufficient, so she was actually acquitted. But the very next day, she was tried again for the death of Robert's father, Christopher. Demdike's statement naming her clay images was read, and witnesses called her more dangerous than her mother. She did not confess, she did not accuse others, and she was found guilty. So there's a bit of inconsistencies here in how things are treated in the court, and maybe with Anne, who was tried twice, maybe she was acquitted partly because they were like, well, we'll just bring her in tomorrow. We've still got her for a few other things, so we'll see what we can spin on that one. Now, a man named John Bulcock and his mother Jane were named in the death of a woman, Jeanette Dean. Another Jeanette. Again, I told you, not very many names shared around at this time.
No, there's about 4 names on rotation.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So I hope everyone's keeping up. If you're not, comment below. Let me know where you got lost. Now, John and his mother Jane, they actually denied attending Milken Tower, which again was the Demdike home that they'd attended on Good Friday. They denied it. But Jeanette Device, Demdike's granddaughter, who is delivering all of these accusations in court or testifying against everyone, she identified them both, and she said no, they were there. She said not just that they were there, she said they turned the spit to roast the stolen sheep. everyone was feasting on. So they were involved with the festivities. They were there. Now, Alice Nutter, another accused, she was an outlier. She was actually a woman of means, a widow of a land-owning farmer, with family ties to Catholics and priests. Everyone else was, they're described as poor. So it was unusual, at least in those days, for people of different classes to mix, especially to mix in, in this kind of way, where she might go and spend the day and spend Good Friday with a group of people. And she actually said nothing. She said nothing in court aside from a plea of not guilty. She said not guilty to the charge of murdering a man named Henry Mitten by witchcraft. Allegedly, she had killed him after he'd refused to spare any charity towards Demdike. So it kind of is described as her taking up the mantle for the Demdikes, who were poorer, and he had said, no, I'm not giving them a handout. She killed him. This is the accusation. She says not guilty. And the evidence against her was that James Device had heard Demdike describing the murder. So
that's the evidence?
Well, it was that and the fact that she was
With
noted
them.
to be present at Malkin Tower on Good Friday. So I think everyone that was present that day, they were just like, there's got to be something we can cook up because these guys have to go. And,
Take them out.
Take them out. Take them down. But yeah, she said, no, it wasn't me. Didn't do it. However, silence in the courtroom is not a shield. It looked guilty. She was found guilty. We now get to a woman named Catherine Hewitt. She was accused of killing a child. James Device had said that she and Alice Gray boasted of it at Malkin Tower. So again, it all comes back to Malkin Tower. Furthermore, Jeanette identified Catherine in a lineup and confirmed that she was present. And so Catherine was found guilty. Interestingly though, Alice Gray, who was tried on a similar charge, and had, as just mentioned, been heard boasting, or at least discussing, a murder, she was found not guilty. And Alice was the only acquittal in this trial. Not 100% clear on why that happened, but she was found not guilty.
So she admitted to murdering someone or being involved in it?
She did not admit to it. She was accused of it. Someone said that they overheard her discussing it. So she didn't say that she did it. But yeah, she was found not guilty.
That's so weird that the other lady who was like, I had nothing to do with it, and no one else said that, and she ended up being found guilty.
Guilty. So I know. Maybe she had connections or something. Who knows?
Oh,
Someone
true.
might have just not wanted her to go.
Do you think that it's easier for kind of, in this day and age that we're talking about, do you think it's easier for the authorities or whoever's making these decisions of guilty, not guilty? There's a lot of guilties coming up, right? Do you think it's just easier for them to be like, just like guilty, we got to like get rid of them because like our community is kind of like torn and we just want to repair it? Is it easier for them just to be like, I mean, there just seems to be a lot of guilties and not a whole heap of evidence, but that is coming from our today brain where evidence needs to be a lot more cut and dry than that.
That's a good question though. Even now we can see that the courts do things that we disagree with or that really surprise us sometimes, where either we think that there isn't enough evidence or the correct evidence for something, or there is so much evidence and it just does not play out the way that you would expect. So, and again, and that comes a lot of the time, that could be to do with money and connections as well. I think it's maybe more similar to today than we really think it is.
Yeah. Kind of what we're
all humans.
Before. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all just humans at the end of the day. And I don't know if we've evolved as much personally as we think we have. I think we've evolved things around us, but like our characters and stuff, I don't know.
That is such a good point.
Well, hopefully we learn. Hopefully all of us at the club learn from this and evolve.
Please. Yeah, we like to learn from history here.
We do. Now, at the centre of all of this was Alison Device, the original woman who had wanted pins, who'd had that encounter with John Law that fateful day back in March 1612, which set all of this in motion. As mentioned, John did survive, actually. John had collapsed, but he managed to recover and accuse her, etc., etc. So she had to face her alleged victim in court. And when he was brought in, Alison collapsed to her knees and confessed again. Through her tears, she admitted it. I cursed him. And so she was found guilty, which now, at this point, I feel like that's kind of fair. Like, I understand, because she confessed straight away. She accused other people, brought them in. Most of them are guilty, according to the court. And now she's faced with a victim and she's like, yep, you know what? I'm so sorry I did that to you.
And I guess that we have to remember that the courts and the laws at the time were informed by their beliefs, and their beliefs were witchcraft and all of the other stuff, good, bad, ugly. So, that's their beliefs, and you got someone coming in saying, I'm guilty of this hex, whatever she did, the curse. So in those days, it's just whether or not we would think she might be guilty today of something like that. Well, they just did it at the time. So do we know what he said from his perspective? Was he like, oh, we should go easy on her? Or he's like, no, she fully did it and I collapsed?
I don't know. I don't know if he said we should go easy on her, but I don't think he would have. His family had kind of I guess it's so hard to say where this really all began. It really all began in belief in witchcraft, but that had been boiling forever. But even though she originally confessed, and she confessed again here, technically it was John and his family who had accused her and brought that situation to light. They'd laid charges or made a report about it. So I don't envision that would have changed by the time that they got to court. So I think he probably was like, yeah, like she literally did it and she's confessing. So what are you guys waiting for? And I get that. Like, out of all the things that I don't get about this, I do get this part, because if someone's confessing to doing something and you're the victim of that thing, you'd be like, I was there. It happened. So she was found guilty, of course. And so then the sentences were read. On August 20th, 1612, 9 were condemned at Lancaster and taken to Gallows Hill and hanged. Alison, Elizabeth, James, Anne Whittle and Anne Redfern. Anne Whittle was Mother Chattox, Anne Redfern was a daughter. Alice Nutter, Catherine Hewitt, John Bulcock and Jane Bulcock. And just remembering there on that note as well that old Demdike had already died in prison. But based on the outcomes that we've seen, most likely she would have been found guilty. The separate York execution of Jeanette Preston had taken place weeks earlier. So altogether, 10 were hanged. Across 3 centuries of English witch trials, fewer than 500 people in total were actually executed, and Pendle accounts for more than 2% of all of those in a single summer. That concentration was a sign that an idea had become policy, and that policy had become rope. The immediate legacies in this story were careers and reputations. Sir Edward Bromley, one of the judges in the case, had gained the promotion that he'd wanted, to be nearer to London. Thomas Potts, the court clerk, was rewarded with royal favour. He became the keeper of Scarm Park to breed and train the king's hounds, and later collector of forfeitures on certain laws. And so the legacy of the story looks different depending on where you were standing in that courtroom. And there was also the long echo of a child's voice, because in 1634, in a cruel twist of irony, another wave of Lancashire accusations produced a new series of trials. A woman named Jeanette Device was among those listed.
Oh.
We've heard that name before a fair few times.
Jeanette. So she would have... So you said this is in the 30s and the previous one was in the 12s, in 1612.
So she was 9 at that time.
So she'd be what, 40, 50?
She'd be about 30, early 30s.
Oh,
right?
Early 30s.
Like 31.
So she was accused.
Well, she was among those listed in the accusations, and historians argue about whether it's the same Jeanette, because as I mentioned, like all these people have the same names really at the end of the day. So this has been, if anyone has understood what's happened here tonight, credit to you. You deserve, I don't know what you deserve, but you deserve something great. So they argue about whether it was the same person, but if it was, she was now on the literal other side of the table, accused of killing a woman named Isabel by witchcraft. The prosecution's key witness, a 10-year-old boy, whose testimony later unraveled, so put a pin in that. However, she's on the other side of the coin here. If it's the same one, again, this is disputed, but
How the turntables.
How the turntables, doesn't it just? I know.
Wow.
Now, I know, actually crazy. But in terms of an outcome for that pile of accusations, I did look into it a bit. And pardons were eventually issued for some of them, but not freedom. Prison remained. On an official record from August 1636, it actually still listed Jeanette Device as being in jail.
It's a good chance that it was her. I mean, I know we're saying there are just a handful of, it feels like there's just a handful of names back then. But, it's the same area, right? It's the same town.
The same area. It's the same first name and last name as well.
The last name. There wasn't as many last names. So I reckon good chances it was her.
Yeah. I think it is. It's not very nice though, is it really? I don't know, on reflection. But it is,
especially now, because we were talking about how she was just 9 at the time, and there could be a bit of, nuance there, and it might not have just been black and white.
Yeah, major twist. All right, well, across the centuries, the social reading of Pendle sways. One way to understand it is a grim economy. Some people in and around Pendle may have made a living as traditional healers, selling charms or cures, protecting households from misfortune, all for a fee. And accusations of witchcraft could be tools of competition as much as moral outrage. Two families, the Demdikes and the Chadoxes, had pushed each other towards the gallows, and then a child condemned them all from the witness stand. Now, if it wasn't witchcraft, what was it? Well, John Law, the first alleged victim that we mentioned in the case, he had collapsed suddenly after engaging in a disagreement of some kind with Alison. He survived the experience, as we know, and many now consider that he may have had a stroke. Other alleged victims could have also fallen prey to natural ends or circumstances. Isn't it strange to think how something so easily explained today, which is what you were saying earlier, Jess, back then that could have just resulted in the death penalty? To think that the accused would also have believed it all, or at least believed in the existence of witchcraft, really kind of adds another layer to things. But whatever you make of the accusations and the outcomes, this slice of history has never been forgotten. Pendle Hill has since become a symbol that locals and visitors climb towards each autumn, half for the view and half for the narrative. And the area itself caters to this interest. There's a Pendle Witch Walk from the Heritage Centre to the castle. A local brewery makes Pendle Witches Brew. A bus route is named the Witch Way. Side note, is actually a little pun I found out. The Witch Way. It's actually like, which way are we going? And they're just playing into it because it goes through that area. So I thought that was kind of quirky and cute.
As you're reading this out, I am adding all of this to my bucket list.
Oh my God, yes.
I need to go. I need to look at the brewery. I need to look at the history walk. I've got to go on the Witch Way
cool.
bus.
There's so much.
I love
that
this.
bus is calling us.
Yeah.
Now, the 400th anniversary of the trials in 2012 generated great commemoration by way of exhibitions, music, and poetry. There have been petitions to pardon those who were condemned at Pendle Hill in 1612. In 1998, the Home Secretary declined these petitions. The state's position remains that history is not easily rewritten by modern acts of mercy. Cultural memory turns the accused from folk devils into folk heroes, and for some readers, avatars of endurance against power. That interpretive swing says as much about us as it does about them. Witch trials are sometimes imagined as mobs with torches. Pendle's core drama, though, was paperwork. Depositions, examinations, official print. The law's quiet rituals, oaths, readings, clerks, proved more dangerous than rumour in the end. And a child's voice was calibrated as law, because a state that was anxious about invisible enemies had lowered its threshold for proof.
What are your thoughts on is it posthumous pardoning? Because I don't know how I feel about that. I'm just,
personally,
for this case.
Oh, for this case?
Yeah, like not in general. I'm talking about for this specific case.
I don't think that in this case or ones like it that people should be pardoned for things that they admitted to necessarily. I just think that if a decision is made, I guess we're getting into generalization now, but you can't rewrite history. And I don't know what value a pardon has if the people being pardoned are no longer there to know it. You can kind of just make different decisions moving forward in other cases, let it inform that, like set a precedent or something. But what do you think?
I think I pretty much agree with you, which doesn't surprise me. But yeah, I think in this, and I'm not saying, because I actually don't know really how I feel about it. I've never really sat and thought about it. But
neither, yeah.
I think for this case specifically, because it was 400 years ago, I just think, like you said, you can't rewrite history. And we have to remember that it is what it was at the time. Which is, that's exactly how their society worked. That's what their laws were. And for example, if they're on trial, their evidence, was fine to present. And I just think we need to understand that that was how they lived their life. Like you said, a lot of them did admit to it, but they're admitting to what they knew as truth, which we might look at differently, but who's to say our truth is truth? It might be getting a bit too deep on it. When you were talking about it, I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. You can't bring them back from their untimely death. And change the fact. So we can look back now and go, most likely a lot of them were innocent. But we can also just know that and just sit with that and go, well, like we talked about at the start, we want to learn from history. So I don't think there was much point to pardon them. Not saying I think that they were like guilty or anything, but I mean, I just don't really see the point of it. And I'm not saying that for every case, just this one maybe, because it's such a long time ago. And because I'm thinking if it was a modern case and if someone got the death penalty, if there was something where they found someone was innocent, which would be horrendous if they were sent to death and they were innocent, I believe that would be important to probably pardon them these days, because if they still have family that are alive and they want that to be the new record because they still have their immediate family are alive, kind of thing. But yeah, something that's so far in the past in history, I don't think so. But let us know your thoughts. Maybe we haven't thought of something.
Now that everyone knows what we think, I really want to know what the club thinks. What do you make of the confessions? Has anyone visited Pendle Hill? Leave us some cozy comments and let us know. We'd love to discuss with you all. The club is changing its schedule, guys. Currently, our episodes go out on Tuesdays weekly. Next week, we are closing out COSYWEEN 2025 on Halloween itself, which is a Friday. And from there on out, our Cozy Crime episodes will go up on Fridays instead of Tuesdays. Join us every Friday moving forward. We'd love to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Fenella, for bringing us this case. I had so much fun. I hope everyone did too. Thanks for getting cozy with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review or share the club with a friend. You can join us on YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify, because here we leave the candles burning and the kettle on. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and stay cozy.